Whoa.
Well, here we are. We're live. It is Say No More Xenomorph, our weekly Alien Earth recap series. Earth's Mightiest Critics have gathered here. Man, I'm sounding more and more funereal as this thing goes on. But Earth's Mightiest Critics are gathered here to discuss the third installment of Noah Hawley's Alien Midquill series. Yes, this takes place after Prometheus and Covenant, but before 1979's Alien by about 2 years. So we're going to get into all of that. I'm going to try and keep this a lean, mean show, although we do have one additional panel member than we had last week, but we're also talking about one episode. So we'll see if the math kind of evens out here. But I am pleased to welcome myself. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Jeff York of Pipeline Artists and the establishingshot.org, and also Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck, aka Ali Out, of the Spoiler Room Podcast and Special Mark Productions, and David Fowley, who is always keeping it real. Welcome, everybody. I didn't prepare a recap this week because it's been one of those kinds of days, but I'll just kind of breeze through some stuff as far as I remember it. If I miss anything quote unquote important, please feel free to correct me. So we pick up on the cliffhanger we left off last week, where the Xenomorph had attacked Joe, who is Wendy's brother, and Wendy is the scientist on the search and rescue mission to explore the contents of the Maginot, a Weyland-Yutani vessel that has crashed into the city-state of the rival Prodigy Corporation. And there were 5 deep space alien species on board, which are now in various stages of getting out. So Joe has been attacked. We pick up with him having been cocooned in the back of a meat locker truck that was somehow on board this, either the ship or the apartment building. The geography is all kind of screwy, so I don't know where exactly we are. Wendy goes to free him while she is in the meat locker. The alien kind of sneaks up and peers through the flaps, and in very uncharacteristically alien-like fashion, but characteristic for the alien in this series, decides, I'm not going to attack either of these people. I'm just going to kind of sneer and walk away, and then jump on top of the truck. Wendy stabs through the ceiling of the truck with the paper cutter sword. The characteristic alien acid bleeds through the ceiling of this truck, and as we've seen in all the other alien movies, there's always the acid scene which cuts through the hull or the metal. It's like, oh, this is very dangerous. Unlike those scenes, it misses everybody. In fact, some of the acid gets onto Joe's vest. He takes it off. It doesn't somehow get onto his shoulder or any other part of his body, and he's standing almost right underneath this thing, but he dodges out of the way. As I wrote to, I think it was Jeff, after I watched this episode, or while I was watching it, there are more problems before the first commercial break in this episode than there were in the entirety of the previous 2 episodes. That was not an exaggeration. It doesn't get much better from there. From here, we get, in short order, Wendy decapitating an alien with that paper shredder sword thing. Keep in mind, this alien acid blood melts through spaceship hulls, goes through decks. Paper sword, paper shredding sword. It's still in her hand. It hasn't melted or dissolved or shown any signs of damage. It's great. Joe gets impaled by a xenomorph tail in the lung. We find out later. It passes out. Wendy also passes out. They are rescued. The entire exhibition is sort of undone when the rest of the Prodigy team comes in, secures the area, and wheels all the specimens into the remote Prodigy HQ, which you might say, oh, this is cool, it's a change of venue, but we're essentially going right back into the spooky spaceship setting -- doomed lab that we are in all of these movies. So it's a change of venue and name only. What else happens? We have a decapitated alien. We have eggs, which are being wheeled around. We have Morrow, the Weyland-Yutani cyborg, who gets the drop on 2 of the synths. They have some back and forth, these children in adult bodies. He begins to uncover the secret of the fact that they are human consciousness transferred into synthetic bodies, but there's a disruption, and he jumps across another fiery chasm, as we've seen, I think, 3 or 4 times in the series already, and we're only at episode 3. Morrow decides that he's going to recapture all the alien species for Weyland-Yutani because this time it's personal. We do get a bit more of his backstory, which I think is probably the strongest passage in this entire show. And what else happens? Wendy wakes up. She sneaks into a lab while Kirsch and the other synths are experimenting on the alien. They don't notice she's standing right behind them. And at the end of the episode, I think she passes out again. So she spends a total of like 15 minutes in this hour-long show conscious. There's a long montage, again, of very strange music when we're transporting these bodies and these cargoes to the new Prodigy station and scene. Did I miss anything crucial? Because it's entirely possible.
I think you've missed 2 parts of potential maybe B story threads.
All right.
One is Curly talking to the billionaire about who his favorite is. And that's setting her up as, I think, an antagonist of Wendy. So
That's
there's
right.
a little bit of an internal problem there. And also the one boy, I forget what his name is contacted
by Morrow, the little thing that he gets on his neck. Yes.
And sort of help him. Everyone needs a friend. So I think you've got sort of dissent amongst the ranks of the new child warriors, if you will.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is I don't know, beyond Wendy and Joe and Kirsch and Morrow and Boy, because his name's so ridiculous, I don't know any of the other like child soldier synths, like their names.
Right.
I kind of get a sense of their personalities, but their personalities all kind of run together, except for that one girl that you mentioned is kind of trying to get into Boy's favor and sort of move up the ranks if there are such ranks. But yeah, I don't. Maybe it's because in the other, like the Alien and Aliens films, they're referring to each other by name a lot. I get a sense of who they are, but I don't know who any of these folks are still. Maybe that'll change by the end of episode 8.
And too, they also didn't set up these characters particularly well until 3 episodes in. So suddenly you realize that there's a little bit of a jealousy on the one girl's part, where we don't really see any of that in the first couple of episodes. So they're getting to developing these characters sort of before we normally would have gotten to know them a little bit more and maybe seen some hints of that kind of stuff. So this comes out of left field a little bit. I think it's a well done scene as she's pushing him to, and I think he's realizing that maybe this is the person who wants to be on his level, as he talked about in the second episode. She said she wants to be greater than him. So that's a challenge to his intellect and je ne sais quoi. But normally those kind of characters would be developed a little bit more in the first hour, especially when you're launching with a 2-hour premiere. Again, I think Noah Hawley here has decided to run, and maybe the network's forcing him to before they've walked properly. There's so much that happened with the crash and all these people fighting and going in there and trying to figure out what the specimens are before we've even had a chance to really get to see what these specimens are. That would have normally been done in, dare I say, a rather cogent screenplay in the first hour. You set all that up. This is what the people are guarding. These are the beasts in the lab, if you will, and we get a sense of what they might do once they're brought down to Earth.
Now, I mean, Jeff,
the dynamic between.
Well, I mean, that's an excellent point, because I had no context for this girl's jealousy. I think if there had been an entire episode devoted to these kids being prepped for this process, maybe it could be like a spooky idea, like, oh, this child is going to essentially live forever, but she's got some kind of devious designs to her. We need to watch out.
Well, see, one little thing one thing they could have done is rather than have her be it, they could have had the girl in the wheelchair be it, because now she's the one thing that was holding her back was that she was in a wheelchair. She was a sickly child. Now she's not. Now she's got all the intellectual capacity, and she's got this trick new body that can't be defeated. That would be a motive, like, okay, now I'm who I should have been when I was a kid, and I cannot be stopped. If they had set that up in the first hour, and that would become the child, instead we get that girl being kind of afraid of everything around her. I'm not suggesting that the scene in the third episode isn't a powerful one, but I think it would have been more powerful if they had set up some of these dynamics first. There's nothing that suggests that she and Wendy would have any kind of animosity towards each other, or maybe a certain amount of jealousy. You could say, well, it comes up when she brings it up. That's not good screenwriting. Good screenwriting starts to put the seeds in the ground and then starts letting them grow with each chapter.
Well, the problem with the show is that they felt the need to throw in every Easter egg and reference to the other Alien movies in the first 2 episodes rather than focusing on the new stuff. But now we're picking up a 3rd episode and you feel like you've jumped into the middle of Westworld, to where you've missed something with these characters. The way they're playing the episodes out of order, like in Firefly, where these characters are talking and acting like you've been with them for a while, so you understand their motivations, and you don't. They just come out of left field because the first 2 episodes were basically a fan service, referential Easter egg hunt, no pun intended, with a very little actual time spent with these characters. And if you look at the way this is structured, you're calling it Alien Earth. You could have easily removed this starship crash altogether. You could have just started with Prodigy Island, spent first 2 episodes introducing these characters, seeing the dynamics, see where their personalities fall in, maybe have Morrow's mission of getting the samples, but you don't have to have them stealing the samples. He just can be a guy who knows that they have these alien artifacts. We don't care where they got them from. They're on Earth now. They could easily drop a little dialogue saying, hey, we had someone acquire this, rather than spend the first episode basically rehashing the first 2 Alien films.
Well, and to build on that first, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, or another, and David, I'm going to get you in here in a second, because I honestly don't know what you think of this series yet. So I don't want to ruin anyone's parade, although I guess I am. But this idea of Alien Earth, I think you're hitting on something here, Mark. It would have been interesting if there had been parallel stories about the developments going on Prodigy Island and the Maginot realizing that it's got these problems with these specimens,
right,
and a building tension where these 2 storylines are parallel, but then they converge maybe at the end of season 1, where they, that's when the crash happens, and oh my god, what's going to happen in season 2, something like that. But anyhow, we're in this realm of speculation. We need to pull over and talk about the show at hand. But first, Mr. Fowley, tell us how much you love Alien Earth. I'm ready for it.
I think I like it a little bit more than Ian and Jeff.
Which is to say, you like it at all? Sorry, go ahead.
Yep. But I think this episode is probably the best yet, because I feel like we finally have some forward motion of where things are going. I really like the character of Morrow, and that may be why, maybe because of the actor who's playing him. I think you could tell he's having fun with the role. And I kind of enjoyed we get a lot more of him in this episode, and I like his interaction with the 2 kids, Slightly and Smee. They're not children, they're adults, children in adults' body. I still think that whole concept is weird to put children in adults. I don't see.
Why would you do that?
I don't really see how it's beneficial. I guess maybe because they didn't want to rip off Avatar and put soldiers in new bodies, which is basically So I guess I don't mind at times I don't mind some of the wide-eyed innocence, but it just seems really odd to. I don't know. This episode I liked Kirsch a lot more in this episode. I mean, it's Timothy Olyphant dressed up as Billy Idol, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I feel like he was kind of annoyed and ticked off at Boy Cavalier, and kind of protective of the synths, the kids, let's say, and just, almost kind of kind of done with it. And he really only kind of perked up once he, started like operating on the face hugger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, he does. My whole problem with the Kirsch character is, I have to ask, would people be as enamored with him if he was not being played by Timothy Olyphant?
No.
If he had just been another actor?
I mean, if he was played by Billy Idol, that'd be cool.
Yes.
But
Very
I think
much so.
you're making the point with the other character that you like, because he's a little bit different than we thought. He seems to
Sure.
be set up as a villain, and he's not entirely, because he wants to do a good job. He doesn't have anybody else. This is his mission, and he feels devoted to trying to make it happen, especially since the crash made the whole project go a little bit awry. But I think what you're both getting at, dare I say, and you too, Mark, when what you were talking about earlier, is there's some very good ideas here. They're just not put in the right order, and I don't think they're written particularly well. You could have started with the one gal trying to get into the pod, and then he, does his finger thing to close the door and fuse it on her, so the alien attacks her, and he gets in the thing. And then you could show all the stuff that happened as quickly as you want, because it's all him downloading it later anyway. And you could show what those species are that he's taken, and why it's gone. Why he sacrificed the crew. Instead, Noah Hawley sets up a good 15-20 minutes of these characters who are not going to matter, because they're all going to be dead in a few minutes. And as an homage to how they all woke up in the first Alien, it's misdirection, and it's unnecessary. That time would have been better spent. And I would have, dare say, not that I'm Mr. Rewrite here, but if I had started this, I would have started with the kids all sitting around talking about the fact that they're geniuses, but they're kids with health problems. And that's why they're being put into these synth bodies. And that's why they are being put in instead of soldiers. But right now, I keep asking myself, Ian, and you and I talked a little bit about this, it seems like a nod towards the younger audience to get kids of 12 and 14 who are, obsessed with video games to watch this and become the core audience here, when there's no real reason to put kids in those things. They're not smart enough. They're not experienced enough. They're clearly afraid. They're being manipulated by every adult or synth around them. The one thing that I keep holding out, though, and I think with the end, with her sort of with Wendy reacting to the alien thing, and maybe to the other sort of AIs or whatever you want to call them, since that we've talked about, I'm wondering if the alien Earth is really going to be about how the humans aren't ready to compete with not only the Xenomorph, but these new hybrids of people inside robots, synthetic bodies, AIs, et cetera, et cetera. Because right now, the kid billionaire who said, I wish I could have somebody in my level so I could have a decent conversation, I think he's going to be finding very quickly that he's in over his head, because all these creatures around him, be they from another planet or from man's creation, are going to smoke his ass, because they're going to be smarter. They've got more capacity. They're stronger. I mean, this clown is still walking around barefoot, which makes no sense with all this drama and danger and acid dripping everywhere. It's like, what are we talking about? Is he a child on Christmas morning? It's silly.
Well, there's another interesting scene where Boy goes into the lab and he sees the alien egg, and Kirsch is beginning to put together what these things are, that they react to organic life. And he actually goes and shoves Boy into like a little chamber and says, like, don't come out. We need to lock down this lab.
So he's smarter than the brainiac right there.
Well, right, but he's also had the benefit of downloading a lot of the information from the Maginot's computer, which something else I want to talk about here, and we'll get back tomorrow, because again, he had the most fascinating, couple minutes of story in this entire episode, and I would love to see a whole show about him. But there is that scene, and it was kind of big in the teaser trailers. People were like, oh, what's going on there? He hooks himself up with these kind of nodes to his temple, these like Christmas light things, as he's downloading all the information from the Maginot, and then he deletes the record, which, I mean, I don't know if he knew that was pointless, because other people have been doing it already. But my question is, we find out that he is a cyborg. He is a man who has had these cybernetic, implants and enhancements. We learned that he'd been out on that mission for 65 years, and he had left behind a family and a daughter. But my question is, why did he need to hook those things up to his temples aside from a cool, strange visual when he had been transmitting code and messages to Mother from deep space? I mean, we've established this is a technology. I can understand if, 65 years ago they didn't have that and this is a thing on Prodigy, but no, this is actually happening on board the Weyland-Yutani ship. It doesn't make any damn sense. I do also think the one thing I think is kind of cool is it does almost force you to go back and re-examine that scene from the first episode where he's in the Mother kind of pod and the girl is banging on the door. When we assume that he's just another synth like Ash, like, oh, he's just the robot, he doesn't care about the people. No, we now know that he is a human being. So I almost want to go back and watch that scene and see if I can read anything on his face other than, I'm just doing my job. He didn't seem regretful. Now he just seems angry, and he seems even angrier that he may have discovered that Prodigy can either they have the ability to, or he's upset because they did transfer human consciousness into a robot body, a synthetic body, whereas he is a man who has been turned partially into a robot. There's a lot going on here that I hope they'll get to in future episodes, but there's so much other weird business going on around this show and things that don't make sense that they seem a lot dumber than the smart ideas that they are playing with, and it's really frustrating.
I think what I like about Morrow is that right now I can't quite figure him out because I can't quite trust him, and I like that. I don't know if I even believe the story that he had a family because he's the one telling it. And because he's really trying to manipulate slightly to get an into Prodigy. By saying, you shared some wisdom. Everybody needs a friend. He's really trying to get in there. And I don't know if I could believe everything he's saying because he's got an end game of like, I'm going to see this through. It's still my mission. I'm going to procure these specimens. So I kind of like that. As far as the downloading thing and the hanging LED lights. I find it interesting how maybe that could have been maybe it could have been like the fastest way of him doing that, because the more he's hooked up, the more he sweats. You notice that it's like the more he's like, it's intense maybe for him. I don't know, but I think that I do sense some frustration that he was turned into this cyborg, but I think he's also using these enhancements to the advantage of his end game here is to, see through to the mission. Also going back to what you were saying about Boy Cavalier, I right now I think the character doesn't really bring much to the series right now. I don't think really. I mean, it's like, okay, we just need this kind of, he's more of a childish imp than the kids who are in the synth bodies. I think in a way Kirsch is probably buying his time and playing a long game on him. Knowing that, no, okay, I'll let you believe that you're a genius, but I know vastly more than you do. But he doesn't have the ego because he's not human.
Right.
Whereas the Boy Cavalier is, insecure, is a narcissist, all those things. Whereas, Kirsch doesn't have any of that. And I did like the line when he was leading the kids in, and he was like, there's no need to fear. Animals fear. You're not an animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's cute and everything, but the problem is, and I think to kind of Jeff's point, they're basically birthed into these new bodies, and within like a day or two, they're being sent out. You can say don't be afraid, but to a child, but they're still children. They don't understand necessarily how invincible they are, except for Wendy, who since she's been alive for in that sense for a few more days, I guess. Yeah. But I do want to talk. I want to ask about the xenomorph itself, because as I kind of alluded to, it does not act like xenomorphs we've seen before. And I swear to God, if anyone tries to say, well, this is a different version of it that we haven't seen before, no. This thing in the first couple episodes, it alternately attacks people, but then when it comes to Joe, who is like roided up with plot armor, it decides, oh, I'm just going to throw him around the room like a WWE star. Again, with Joe in this episode, when the alien gets on top of him, it opens its mouth and it slowly extends its inner jaw just in time for Wendy to hook it.
Yep.
We've never seen that do that before, except for the shuttle scene in the first Alien when it was essentially going to sleep and yawning. But every other time it opens its mouth and it does its business and it gets out of there and goes to cocoon the thing. So
well, no, we've seen it in Alien 3.
Yeah, it was either Alien 3 or Resurrection.
Alien 3 is the shower scene where she's in there and the alien gets up close to her. But here's the thing.
That was because it recognized that she was carrying a queen.
Right. And I almost get that they're implying, if it wasn't for the lung scene, which, it's odd. Huh?
We'll get to that.
Yeah, it's odd how they're handling the xenomorph behavior, because when the xenomorph acted like he did towards the brother, I thought they were implying that he was carrying an embryo, because earlier if you remember, someone lifted a carcass of a face hugger in the egg chamber.
Yeah.
At one point,
that was
because he held it up and went, ugh.
He was also glued up against the wall, which is always the sign that they do to control them, and then they put it in their mouth so they don't have to fight.
Right.
So
but
you're right. They're teasing us with that, but it's not seemingly true. But
right.
I mean, because there was no point, I don't think, during the show where Joe is missing from the audience perspective, and even when he's webbed up in that that meat locker, there's no egg present.
No, there is.
I understand if they're trying to do something like they implied with the director's cut of the first Alien, which is that the xenomorph, absent a queen in its own environment, can find a way to reproduce and turn people into eggs. That could be interesting, but again, I don't know if they're just messing around. The other thing I want to talk about is the blood situation. I already mentioned the acid pouring through the roof of the truck. When Wendy decapitates this thing, the carcass is laying there, bleeding all over the place, ostensibly not creating giant holes in the floor underneath its own body. But later on, when it's wheeled into the lab at Prodigy, the head is still steaming. The acid is still active and yet not melting the cart that they wheeled the thing in on. Again, these are things that I just get the feeling the showrunner's like, oh, it would look so cool if it was still steaming, without anyone saying, yeah, but that doesn't make any damn sense.
It's special material for it.
Yeah.
It's
right, that they came up with. They developed a special material for alien acid blood for a species they didn't know existed 24 hours ago. They
needed that special netting that Marl used, I think, in one of his episodes too.
We talked about that last week. Like, where was that during the entire rest of the movie series?
And can I dare say, I think, just to quickly, and I think it's something for the rest of the group to respond to, but these are very critical things. This isn't our first or second or third version of Alien. We're on 10 now or whatever it is. And they've written books and comic books and everything else about it. So to sort of ignore the lore or things that are kind of important, or, create consistency for it, even within the frameworks of these 3 episodes so far, is I dare say, bordering on derelict of narrative. It's like, come on, man, don't make this so convenient just because you want to have a cool shot of a steaming body as it's going to be operated on. Or, suddenly she's able to, we see acid dripping off of that paper cutter. I mean, like, that's a special sword, but, that hasn't been decimated or whatever. And the other thing, too, is like, every time we've seen somebody sort of up against the wall plastered there, it's because they have been implanted. Now, who knows if he was there for 2 minutes that we didn't see him on the elevator. It's because we've been, cutting back and forth with here and there. But these are things that I think, based on the lore of this franchise, are reasonable questions. And I think they're head scratchers here. I don't know why they need to go with these things that don't seem to be loyal to the consistent or consistent to the sort of franchise. when there's other ways they could do this. I mean, getting back to your original point, Ian, why does he hesitate before killing anybody here? He's being threatened left and right. He's being, captured and placed in jars and everything else. He's being contained. I just want to get rid of all of you. And he keeps going after Morrow, who is even a synth. So it's like he's not really interested in only killing the humans. He's attacking anybody who seems to be attacking him. And yet he doesn't do that with Ben. And then, I don't know. These are the things that I'm having my problems getting my hands around or head around, because they seem to be wildly inconsistent.
Well, and then let's talk about Wendy. We get this scene where she ends up hooking the mouth of the alien. She pulls the alien into this room. They're supposed to lock it, and the alien wraps its tail around her, pulls her into the room just before the door gets shut, and then we hear fighting and everything. And then we find that she's dispatched the alien, but then she bleeds because she's got some kind of head wound and she falls over. Okay. Then when she does finally wake up later in the episode, they're implying she now has some odd connection to the alien, because while she's awake, she's hearing some strange noise that's corresponding to
the surgery.
Kirsch pulling out the little embryo, which we've now discovered what is actually in a face hugger, a little embryo for whatever reason. And they put it in a lung, which I'm like, wait, what? Did you not just read the research in your brain, download how they actually need to, but they shove it in a lung, and she freaks out and passes out. Kirsch seems to just ignore the fact this person that he's, a synth, just passed out.
Well, he doesn't even know she's in the room.
Yeah,
he's continuing to do the surgery, and she's sitting there opening the door, making noise, convulsing, and not one of the three people on the operating table goes, she shouldn't be in here.
Even if they could have had them acknowledge her and just keep about their work, that would have been fine. But them not even acknowledging her, and like I said, and the whole sound thing being connected to the alien didn't make a lot of sense. And here's the problem, and this is what I ran into to Predator: Killer of Killers. Similar product. The anime. You have an established world built. You want to do something different. You can't just do something different. You have to explain away why this is going to be different than all this other lore or behavior that we have set up in the previous establishments of this IP. I'm all for doing something different if it makes sense. Now, I know we're only 3 episodes in, but the behavior, as we've mentioned, and what we're discovering about the xenomorphs is going against stuff that's supposed to happen after and before this series. And so it's like, what? It's just like Killer of Killers. It's like suddenly, wait, I'm not going to spoil that ending for folks, but let's just say there's an ending that really was a head scratcher for me, going, wait, what?
Well, there's a new ending to that too.
And there's a new ending to that as well. And that's even the new ending. It made me even more scratch my head, go, wait, what? And
it'll all be explained in the new Predator movie coming out in a couple of months.
And I don't mind. I'm not saying they can't do anything new with the IP. I mean, that's what the prequels to these Prometheus and Covenant tried to do, is they were trying to bring at least something a little bit different to the lore and establishing, but at least they took at least a little time to try to give a bit of an explanation, either visually or word wise. Here in Alien, as far as the subject, the title character of this series goes, it's not making a whole lot of sense. It's either stuff we've seen before or the new stuff. You're not setting up a reason why this is different than everything you've established in this world, and it's jarring for you.
That's the psychic connection that Wendy has almost harkens back to the Dark Horse comics from the late 80s and early 90s, where Newt, when she got back to Earth, because this is before Alien 3, where she and Hicks were killed off, they get back to they're still wandering around in space, but she's kind of matured into young adulthood, but she's having these nightmares about aliens and other kind of similar vaguely alien-esque monsters. And it's sort of implied that once you have an encounter with, I believe, a queen, that sometimes you can have this, that like they are psychically projecting something into your brain. It's almost like an infection that's planted in there, like a psychic embryo. That would be interesting to explore, except they don't explain in this show how you can send a psychic transmission, an alien can, to a human brain that has been translated into data and downloaded into a machine, unless somehow the essence of the human soul is put into the body and not just a series of ones and zeros. It doesn't make any sense. And I am hopeful that by the end of episode 8, we'll have at least some kind of a clue as to what's going on here. But again, it just feels like because it is cool idea rather than something that was well thought out. Mark, go ahead.
What if our kids didn't actually, I mean, what if it's a gotcha by the film and by our boy that they didn't actually download the consciousness of one person or the other, but they actually transferred brain, or at least for Wendy, to where she's actually not got the transfer, but she actually has a human brain.
No, they established it's a transfer in the first episode, because there's that whole montage.
That's true.
Them,
that's true.
You know,
you're right.
Bodies next to each
you're
other.
right. No,
I
but
like that idea, Mark, but you know, that's not in the show, unfortunately.
But what you're onto, and what the cliffhanger here is ultimately about, is somehow Wendy has the connection with the alien.
Right.
We're not sure why, and it has yet to be explained. And based on all of the 40 plus years of lore, it doesn't seem to make sense, especially since she's now in a synthetic body. However, that I think is what hopefully going to be the crux of this show, and explain it some way, because otherwise I'm not sure why they would do that. I mean, the one thing I keep thinking is, if the big surprise here is going to be that these sort of fake humans, let's just call them that because it covers the whole gamut, are going to somehow be smarter and or relate more to the aliens that they've brought in, and they will almost side with the aliens against the humans. I don't know. I could be wrong on this, but so far the humans the two doctors and the billionaire and the other corporate overlord in their fancy infinity pool setting are nothing but scoundrels, or yes men, or
corporate
sort of hapless scientists waiting to be killed in an easy pickings kind of thing, where the smarter characters are Wendy and Hirsch and Morrow and potentially Curly, who now seem to have these they're thinking things in the long game, to your earlier point, Ian, about Kirsch playing a long game somehow. Or who made that point?
It was.
Yeah. The question I have is, does that make sense though in the Alien franchise, and especially when you're saying that this is the beginning, or sort of right after Prometheus and that? Because if that was like 100 years down the way after the last one, and okay, we've tried to defeat these MFers, how many times, and we never can. Let's, rather than fight them, join them. Maybe there's something to be gained by trying to mind meld with them or figure out where they're coming from. I mean, clearly they need human hosts to be able to recreate. So how did they survive all these centuries?
Well, I think
when there wasn't space travel. I mean, those are good questions that maybe they could explore. Maybe they just want to survive and keep the race going.
Black goo.
The black. Well, two things there. One, Jeff, you bring up some great points. I don't think any of these ultimately matter, because we kind of are hypothesizing, because Prodigy and all of this other stuff is not mentioned anywhere else later on in the timeline. This is all, they're probably going to nuke the island or something. Now, I was fine with that until the whole idea of Prodigy securing, like once they go to that secret lab, that means that they secured the spaceship not well enough to keep Morrow from escaping somehow. But you've got a spaceship that has crash landed in the heart of one of the 5 mega corporations that runs the planet. I want to know about news blackouts or something, because again, this is supposed to be this like pocket secret, like no one knows about the aliens except Wayland Yutani because of what happened with David in the prequels. But does the rest of the planet have any inkling of a spaceship from deep space crash landed, or do they like write it off as swamp gas or something like that? Like, what's going on here? They're smashing the lore like a bull in a china shop. The other thing is, I think it would have been, for a second, I got really excited until I realized that Boy is with Prodigy, because when he's talking to the one girl, again, I don't remember her name, the one who wants to be the top.
Is it Curly?
Is it Curly? Curly.
Curly.
Okay. I was wanted to call her Mo or Larry, but anyway, he's talking to her and he says, "Okay, I've got some tapes and some logs or something that I'd like you to read." Books. I got really excited because like, oh, maybe he's going to give her David's information, the stuff that he was working on, once he went off to that to be the hermit in the planet, and we don't know what happened to him after Covenant. But then I realized, wait, Boy wouldn't have access to that because that was all Wayland Yutani kind of black ops stuff. So yeah, no hope for the future there.
Well, unless he stole it from Wayland Yutani. I mean, it is teased.
But he would know way more about what was going on with the eggs and all that stuff. He wouldn't have had that adverse reaction in seeing it in the lab. He would have cottoned on to that.
I think they suffer from scope creep in this.
Sorry,
I just was going to say, I think they suffer from scope creep with this show. I think part of the problem is we only have 8 episodes. We're going to be halfway through already. And you have Curly, you have Nibs, you have Hermit, you have Kirsch, you have Wendy, you have Morrow, you have Toodles, you have Smee. You have a large
the 2 doctors and the security guy
doctors
for kid too,
and then you introduce, you've got Boy, and then you've got Yutani, who actually is the granddaughter of the original Yutani that Morrow dealt with. I mean, there are a lot of threads here, and you only have 8 episodes in an alien show where you're supposed to be exploring also the aliens. I think that's part of it, is that they're trying to give some of these characters extra bits, because we get a wonderful little scene in here with Nibs contemplating her being transferred into this body and realizing she's not going to die and trying to have an existential crisis. Basically, Nibs does with the one scene we give her, but we only get one scene with her. A couple characters barely get noticed outside of Morrow going, "Oh, your kid's in human bodies," and that's about it.
Mark, you've hit on I think the key thesis for my big problem with this show, and it goes back to something Jeff had said. This is a show; it's not appropriate for children, but it certainly wasn't created for fans of the first 2 Alien films. Which, even though one was a horror movie, the other was like a sci-fi action movie, they're both very smart, and they both take great pains to set up a world and make believable characters. Characters with names like Brett, Parker, Lambert, Ripley. And now we're dealing with people like Smee and Curly and Nibs. Like,
Toodles.
No, yeah, none of that. None of this is real.
And there's nothing really adding for them being kids in human bodies outside of kind of a gimmick. But as far as the narrative goes, there's absolutely no reason they need to be. They could easily be 20 somethings rather than actual kids
or kid geniuses. I mean, that's the other thing. This is 100 years into our future. And this is the same problem. And the reason I don't watch newer Star Trek is because the people that are in this far-flung 3rd or 24th century, they act like young 20-somethings today, which is like emotionally arrested TikTok brain people who don't belong on a pseudo-military space exploration vehicle, talking back to superior officers, all this other stuff. It's not Star Trek, and this isn't Alien. It'd be interesting, again, something that Jeff has brought up, like if these are truly kid geniuses and the people that Boy wants to have an intellectual sparring match with give some indication that they could grow into that. Why does he think that of these children? Did he psychically project their test scores or whatever to say, when 20 years from now, they're going to be amazing. But right now they're just sitting there like noogie wrestling each other in an alien egg chamber saying, you said shit, you said fuck, until the adult shows up. I seriously, a couple of times during this episode, I almost broke out into tears because I realized I have to keep watching this show so I can come talk about it with you every week. But I did not want to go on, not with the show, but just did not want to go on.
I prophesied this.
I'm sure you did.
You're our curse, David.
So speaking of prophecy, I did briefly scour the internet for theories of episode 3. All right. So the interesting thing, I too thought initially it was a psychic connection, but they weren't really in this episode giving us really more than just how
sound.
Sound. So interesting theory here. The answer may, in fact, I'm reading this. The answer may, in fact, lie in a small bit of dialogue back in episode 1, which takes place shortly after Wendy Marcy's consciousness has been downloaded into her new synth body. At one point, just before the hybrids go on their mission to find Wendy's brother, she's sitting in a lab taking part in an audio test that involves raising her hand when she hears a beat. The key line, which is muttered by a technician shortly before Wendy spots her brother on a nearby screen, quote, she's beyond our human frequencies, 70,000 hertz, unquote. This moment is almost lost due to Wendy abandoning the test shortly after, but it may actually be key to understanding why she collapses in pain during episode 3. It's not that Wendy has a psychic connection to the Xenomorphs, it's that they're making noises in a frequency that only she can hear. The audio test in episode 1 was cut short, presumably before the technicians had a chance to tweak Wendy's hearing, which means for now she's the only one that can hear the aliens. Now remember, as far as the Xenomorph, we've never seen these, well, except for the little octopus with 1,000 eyes that's new to this show. We've never seen these aliens with eyes, right? So they hear, they have kind of like a sonar, they hear, and they move around through smell and hearing and all that. So I think it's, I don't know if they didn't really give us enough to show that it's a psychic rapport or anything like that. It's more of like she's the one that can hear them and be affected by them by their audio,
and hopefully that comes up in episode 4, and I'm fine with that. I'm just saying with the behavior, the way it was portrayed, it gave the impression of a psychic link.
I feel that too. I was,
well, also to that point, if that is indeed part of Wendy's superiority, then that ties in the very first moments of the show where they're talking about what seems to be, or at least is stated as the theme of this series. And that is, there is this fight for superiority amongst these powers on what sort of, dare I say, how will they prevail? And if the idea is prevailing with the smartest minds, albeit never dying minds, because they're placed in synth bodies so they can continue on and on, that's interesting. And anybody who has an advantage over somebody else from a stronger body, the inability to bleed or die, as Nibs is talking about, thinking about immortality, or Wendy's supersonic hearing, great. But they've got to then make that the theme of the show, because right now it seems like it's all the same. Dumb people don't know how to deal with the alien. And putting the alien embryo into the lung of Ben that has been, or the lung, I think it's his lung.
It's his lung that was
surgery.
Removed. Yeah.
Well, it's like, oh, get it? See, it needs a human host. But I just think there's all these other creatures, including the octopus with 10 eyes that killed that cat, and different things that they're looking at. Are they going to play a role? Hopefully so. But to your point, Mark, we've got only 5 episodes left. We're almost halfway through here. And thus far, it seems like more of a kill fest. And that's just sort of a little bit of what, I think people looked at the first movie and the second, and maybe some degree the franchise of like, well, we're, turning the Xenomorph into Jason. It's knocking off the people and then there were none, which is, fine on one level. But I thought this was going to be much more intellectual, and it seems to be quickly cheapening that by having us waste time with characters who are so kid-like that the only thing it seems to me is a crass play for that audience of children who might be watching the show and thinking it's cool, as opposed to what is stated as the real theme about human survival and superiority.
Jeff, you mentioned the lungs, and we kind of mentioned that earlier. Are those the lungs of her brother Joe?
I think
it's the one lung.
One of the
because
lungs that
I believe it was. I think it was punctured during the alien during the Xeno attack, and now they're putting it into this Bacta tank to heal it, and also to use it as the farm for this this Xenomorph.
So do you think they're going to put that lung back in him?
Yeah.
Yes, and it's going to have the baby building. Yes, and he's
they're gonna
ultimately we're going to get to Wendy versus her brother.
Yeah, you're gonna her brother, the Xenomorph from her brother. They're leaning towards that lung's going to go back in with the Xenomorph still in it, and that's how it is. They're going to put the lung back that has been repaired. He's going to be fine, and then all of a sudden, dinner scene again, and
hello, my baby. Hello, my
dummy. Hello, my good time gal. And then you have her brother being killed by the people who created her, so you can throw in that whole complex.
But see, wouldn't it be more interesting, guys, if the kid billionaire was like, rather than thinking he's going to make billions off of this weird species that can be damaging, and you can almost see him with the military complex contracts dancing in his head. Wouldn't it be more interesting if he thought there was an opportunity now to meld that with the synths where they couldn't kill, and maybe that's where it's going, but I wish they had gotten there, because we're 3 episodes in, to your point, Mark, halfway through the season, and we have yet to see him act as smart as he says he is.
Well, it's that would be an interesting kind of tack on it, because all the Weyland-Yutani is very much about the weapons division, as outlined by Carter Burke 60 years into this show's future.
Yes.
But yeah, it'd be interesting if Boy Cavalier wanted to do something admittedly horrific, if he wanted to make hybrids or something like that. But also, what if he wanted to synthesize, turning the alien acid blood into some kind of weapon, or finding out how they regenerate and all that stuff? Can that be applied to human cells? Not making xenomorphs, but finding cures for cancer, essentially like alien stem cells or something like that. Or that'd be a cool tack.
Or transferring the alien's consciousness into a synth body to see what happens. Tell me, though, think of the boy character.
Yeah,
couldn't you see him doing that just because of his behavior?
That would be at least something. Then you have all these weird hybrids going on around all over the place.
Well, but then we're back to Alien Resurrection, and nobody wants to go back there. But we're gonna pull over and look at some comments here, because we have a bunch, and then we're gonna go, because
I knew these could never be 30-minute episodes. They just couldn't. There's no way.
Well, it's because we've got a big panel of engaged, intelligent,
thinking
heads. People, right, who should all be in the writer's room for this series. Okay, so Miguel, this is Romulus all over again in space. No one will hear me scream at this poodoo. And yes, I used a Star Wars reference. All right, Miguel, love it. The eggs now react at the presence of biological life, but how does it know? In the first Alien, the crew that found the ship were in suits, and the eggs still reacted to the presence there. That's an interesting point, because Kane still had the full mask on. It's not like he took off his. Oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought about that.
Well, they were walking on the tentacles and stuff that connected the eggs as well, so there's sensory things going on with them more so than
they had that whole mist.
Right, but that's the thing. There was nothing. It's not like they were walking around in their suits.
Right, true.
Right, so it could have been a synth in a spacesuit. Would that have had the same reaction? And if not, then it's. Man, okay, I'm going to be thinking about this one for a while. I'll come back next week with a theory. Sajua says, should have gotten my food earlier. Anyway, joining the show for a bit. We'll be back later if I head out for a bit. All right, thanks. Well, happy you're here. I like the Alien Earth show. Saw the first 3 episodes. Good cinematography. Yes, show looks like $1 bazillion. The characters who die on some eps may come back later, will be shown later in later eps events before they die. It's a TV show, so they have to move things around as to what is shown when. I was thinking about that last week, if there's going to be a Maginot flashback episode, and there may very well be, but I don't know if this point, with all these questions they keep raising, if they can afford to pull over and have
I'd be
an
really
entire.
surprised if they did that.
I wouldn't be, because that would be an expected thing, but on the other hand, I wouldn't want to see it, because then that just leaves all these other questions hanging for another
if this
episode,
was a
another
10
season.
if this was a 10 episode season, I'd say they dedicate a Morrow flashback, and we could see how either the specimens were created, or a little bit through the Morrow character, you could see a flashbacks, about what more events that happened. But I don't think you get that, because their whole point was to get the aliens to Earth. That's the whole point of the
Imagine. More cast in this show, it's a mad.
Yeah,
more.
there's that too.
I mean, it's just like too many characters.
Morrow's son is going to grow up to be Yaphet Kotto's character in the first.
Yes, there you go.
Actually, he looks a lot like him, doesn't he?
Yeah,
exact same type of actor.
What if Yaphet Kotto's character is actually an android? Anyway,
no,
we
David,
we saw his brain split in Alien.
We did. Well, not everything is metallic.
David, I wonder if you're onto something there. Like if Parker is maybe he's his son, because it's been 65 years. We don't know how old he was. Well, no, I don't know.
This is 2 years. This is 2 years before Alien.
Yeah, it could be related. Yeah. Okay. So grandson or something. I'm not sure. Again, too many things being thrown at me here. I'm thinking on my feet, which is always a bad idea. Siju also says there may be a good plot reason for the kids. Let's see. It is annoying now. Yes. But might be a good topic. Young humans and older robot bodies. The adult robot guy with the blonde hair is good or goo. Good acting. Interesting character. Yes. Rumor has it that Kirsch is a replicant. Oh, Miguel says, like Roy Batty from Blade Runner.
Yes,
that would be great.
I guarantee. I think there's still a rights issue, because I think Warner Brothers owns Blade Runner. But I would not be surprised if one of the 5 corporations that runs the planet is going to be revealed in the season finale to be Tyrell.
Well, it has been definitely fan theorized for many ages now that Blade Runner is in the same universe as Alien.
Yeah,
right, and also Soldier with Kurt Russell
and Soldier as well. Yep.
Yeah,
same screenwriter too.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch the Screen Crush breakdown that I shared, they do pause on some of those screens where it breaks down. There's a lot involved in some of those screens, and some of them mention the Tyrell Corporation, and
all right.
Yeah,
I guess it's semi-official,
and that passes for screenwriting today, storytelling today, because it's all fanboy service. Like, would it be cool if it's related to the Rutger Hauer Alien? And that, no, it wouldn't be. It would not be. It would just be all the more derivative.
It's a small universe after all.
It's a mad one too. To go back to Jeff's reference from earlier.
Mad. Yeah.
It's a Mad Max universe. There you go.
Oh man, I was worried. Thanks for letting us know you were out for a walk at 9:50.
Tell Jeff for dinner as well.
He might. We still have some more comments.
I blew my nose at 10:30.
In case something happens to him, we know we have the log. We know.
Well, no, I gotta hook myself up to it to download the information. This show has a lot of.
I think that's what Jeff's doing right now.
It does kind of look. there you go. This show has a lot of pointless character stories. Romulus all over again.
Lots of snacks.
Bad writing and continuity. I guess in space, no one can hear you screaming this crap from an angry fan. The show has a chill mood, like slow cinema. I can hang back and see what happens.
I'm not sure that's true, but
it's
slow cinema. I don't think so.
I'm not sure there's a chill mood to any of this.
It's definitely it's not weird. It's not scary. It's for sure.
But it's all agitated. Everybody is agitated in every scene. It's hardly chill.
I was agitated at every scene. I don't know if that counts.
Exactly. They want you to feel like the characters.
Well, while the tech is not explained, I think the kids are actually dead. What's running in the robots is an electronic copy of their brains. Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, their bodies are zipped up and thrown in the incinerator.
Yeah.
So, Perhaps all robots that we see in all Alien movies were once humans. I Well, no, because Ash is fully
Yeah.
synthetic, unless they're talking about, maybe his consciousness was downloaded. I don't know, but that was, again, that was boys tech. Now
No.
out for real. All right. Miguel says the Xeno flips a shipping container but can't shake off a 115-pound girl with a
there
hook in
was,
its
yeah, there was.
I'm not even sure she's 115 pounds.
Well, she's got the density to jump off a cliff and then run down a
Leave
beach.
Kyle
So who
Chandler's
knows?
daughter alone.
Believe me, I would like to.
Teflon.
The material that prevents the acid from melting, it is Teflon. That's right. Why does Wendy hear the aliens clicking, but the others don't? Are they all built the same? Grr, Romulus. Well, we kind of covered this. It might be a quirk to her specific
Hearing
model.
ability. Yeah.
I think a lot of the questions will be answered by the end of season 1. That is, Sujiro, you are the king of wishful thinking, as Go West once sang. A fun, chill watch until then. Alien Earth takes place 2 years before the original Alien movie, so they have some room to play around with why no one knows a lot about the aliens. Yeah, everyone on the island probably gets killed. Or maybe they go off into space, far off somewhere away from other humans to live forever. So all humans probably die from the island, and some of the robots kids probably survive, and some of those characters could come back in future movies once the TV show ends. There's a lot of possibilities. I think the problem is that all of them seem problematic and not that interesting. I stand by where I was at the last episode, which is just stop making properties based on these IP, which will never do.
Or at the very least, stop filling in these chapters in between chapters. Go into the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I said it the first episode. I'm so tired of Spock and Kirk and the characters and Luke Skywalker and Anakin. It's like, are there no other characters in these galaxies, in these federations? Come on. The idea is Star Trek. The idea is Star Wars. It's not Anakin Skywalker or James T. Kirk. It is not. The shows have figured that out. Why are the movies always doing the same? Well, nobody knows Star Trek unless it's Kirk and Spock. Really? That's so insulting.
I guess we'll never know, because that's the gamble they continue to take.
They also were going to do a Knights of the Old Republic Star Wars trilogy that took place 200 years before A New Hope, I think it is, or 100 years, based off of the video game, which would have been interesting, at least because you would have had at least some interesting concepts and ideas, and you can make Alien Earth work. I think they're trying to bite off a lot more than they need to with this series. I think they need to whittle it, not as many characters, focus on your themes with the main interesting characters, and just to engage you. Now, I get it. I know what Suji was saying, and it seems like it's an approach for some of these other shows that are definitely coming to streaming, is that, hey, it's going to be random ideas until like the last episode, and then it's all going to be sewn together. The problem is, what made the really good shows work is they gave you at least enough little crumbs to stay interested. I will argue that while I didn't quite like the other seasons of Heroes, the first season of Heroes, I loved the first season of Heroes.
Well, and that was, the second or the third season, I can remember, that was all writer's strike. That was what, screwed up Veronica Mars and a lot of good, strong television, is they literally didn't know if they were going to be working on a TV show for a week. But okay, we are double time as we were last week. I have once again broken my promise to the audience and my panelists, so I apologize for that. But maybe we just need to commit to another hour this week, this coming week,
or just say it's an hour show.
That's what I'm saying. Is,
yeah.
But I had a dream, I had a fantasy. It's floating away to Neverland. But we are going to be back here next Thursday, I think, talking about Alien Earth episode 4 at 8:30 p.m. Central. So please join us back here for that. In the meantime, let us know what you think. Drop a comment if you like the show, or do you think we're all completely off base? If you don't like the show and you've got other reasons we haven't gotten to here, we'd love to hear your theories and gripes, and also your adoration if you have it. I am once again Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Jeff York of the Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists, Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck of Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room Podcast, and once again David Fowley of Keeping It Real. Yes, that's you, David. Join us back here next week. It's such an 80s sitcom intro thing. I love it. But join us back here next week for the episode. That will be the halfway point. We'll be definitely living on a prayer at that by then. And please, if you like this show, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Kicking the Seat also has a new Patreon, so you can support us that way. And please check out all of Earth's Mightiest Critics information down below. Support them. Follow, subscribe, everything you can do to support my lovely colleagues and, dare I say, friends. And yeah, thank you for joining us here. Until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much and take care.